Good evening, friends and neighbors. My name is Terry Carter, and I'm a writer and a poet. I also have the privilege of directing elder services here at our beloved West Medford Community Center. Welcome to our 12th monthly presentation of First Friday's Words and Music. That's right. Just about 1 year ago, with our friends from Somerville Community Access Television, we ventured forth with this idea that a local program which blended the most engaging conversations we could host and the best live music we could secure would appeal to a neighborhood audience in our greater Medford family. After a year, we feel like a network sitcom that's been renewed for a second year. We thank you all for joining us regularly or for the first time on what's been a fantastic way to celebrate community. So even as we continue to work on the technical reboots with our broadcast partners in Medford and Somerville, we will be videotaping tonight's program to upload to YouTube as soon as we can. Many of our prior programs are already available there, and the online response has been great on both the words and the music side. Before we get started, I'd like to send out special thanks to Yvette Wilkes, who has continued to brave the wilds of cable access in both Somerville and Medford to help us be part of the future of local TV in both places. I'd also like to thank the law offices of Allen Pampinen, Tufts University Neighborhood Services, and the Medford Arts Council for their continued support. Finally, I want to give a shout out to the West Medford Reading Club, a favorite activity of the late and most beloved Dorothy Elizabeth Tucker. Through the club's generosity, we have several new microphones and stands given in fond memory of Queen Dorothy Elizabeth. So we're here, as our outreach suggests, to celebrate a vibrant partnership between our Proud Cities faith community and one of the great remaining enclaves of the Native American presence in the United States, the Lakota Sioux Nation, comprised of several historical tribes and one of the largest remaining Native American populations in the country. It is said now to number over 150,000 official members. Today, the Lakota people are found mostly in 5 reservations of West and South Dakota, including the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So I want to begin with an extended quote from Pastor Wendy Miller Olapati of Sanctuary United Church of Christ, because it's kind of where the story begins. Most of us are aware that by shifting the perspective one brings to any situation, whether it is a mechanical problem to be solved, a beloved relationship that needs attention, or a spiritual disconnect that needs to be renewed, one is usually blessed with another way to see. More often than not, if one seeks to look at a person, place, or thing with a new pair of glasses, one will see it anew. Seeing with a new pair of glasses is inherent in the work of making paradigm shifts in cultures and institutions, having empathy and social justice, seeking and personal relationships, and trying on different practices, be they eating habits, exercise regimens, or faith practices, to build one's own physical, emotional, or spiritual wellness. This is also one of the great blessings of being intentional about experiencing people and cultures that are not our own. When we show up to see new things, when we look for new experiences and new insights, we are blessed with a new pair of glasses. At the heart of the mission of the Lakota Youth Stay program is the goal to create cultural understanding between two cultures, to foster authentic, meaningful, and mutually fulfilling relationships between Native American youth from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and the youth and adults from Eastern Massachusetts. This is great stuff. So, since 2012, Sanctuary United Church of Christ members and friends have participated in annual volunteer trips to the Pine Ridge Reservation, home of the Oglala Sioux in South Dakota. Through the years, volunteers have worked with numerous nonprofit organizations there, supporting building and other community projects for the benefit of the Lakota people. Out of their faith and the congregation's vision to share love, seeking justice for all, a number of members imagined ways to make their commitment to Pine Ridge local by building a long-term, sustainable relationship that would support the young people of Pine Ridge and bring the culture of the reservation to Boston. The mission of the Lakota Youth Stay program is to foster authentic, mutually fulfilling relationships between Native American youth from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and youth and adults from Eastern Massachusetts. By exchanging cultural visits to each other's communities, we seek to create understanding. Lakota Youth Stay strives to open new opportunities for Native American youth whose access to broader educational, intellectual, cultural, and social experiences may be limited on the reservation. We expect the Youth Stay experience to ignite a spark of hope in Lakota youth and motivate them to continue learning, living, and growing so that they reach their full potential. Ideally, the experience will inspire Lakota youth to envision a future living creatively and productively on the Pine Ridge Reservation and contributing towards improving conditions on the reservation over time. Joining us here today, we have Lakota Youth Stay Program Director and Jane of all trades, Joy Harris. We also have her mate, Bruce Roberts, founding members of the program, and we have two parents that hosted youth from the Lakota Reservation for 2 years running now, Elizabeth Schaefer and Robert Crooks. So happy to meet all of you. Okay, so as is my custom, when we get together, once a month, I always like to share a bit of poetry to spice things up. Even more so tonight because I want folks to see what we as a nation are responsible for in regards to our quote-unquote discovery of America. As always, the intent is not to further indict, but to further illuminate. This piece is called Native Son, S-O-N, Native Son, S-U-N. I am a child of native soil, native son, and silent subjugation in this dream called America, in this scheme called America. My ruddy roots run deeper than the blackest coal of the West Virginia mountainside, deeper than the river-chiseled basin of Bryce Canyon, deeper than the massive tangled tendrils beneath the giant sequoias and the proud New England pines. I was 1,000 nations before 1,000 nations invaded my shores for this dream called America, for this scheme called America. Long before the conquistadors challenged Chapultepec, long before Vespucci challenged Colombo, long before the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, long before the Mayflower and the Middle Passage, my soul was invested in these ancient sovereign shores. I was Comanche and Cree and Choctaw, Sioux and Seminole and Shawnee, Arapaho and Apache and Apalachicola, 1,000 nations before 1,000 nations invaded my shores. I was tied to the land, to its spirit gods and its dancing deities, to the song of the drum and the chants of my ancestors. I made daily sun salutations. I made nightly lunar lamentations. I sacrificed to the great father and the bountiful mother of my existence. I harvested her fields gently, hunted her forests reverentially, and fished her waters respectfully. I ran with the wolves and followed the eagle's flight. On the wild Appaloosa, I wore the feathers of the hawk and the grizzly bear's hardy coat and the Brahma bull's hide to honor my kills and to become the essence of my animal kin. I didn't plot counties, towns, and cities on a grid. My people had no concept of owning Mother Nature's bounty, of stealing the great father's purple mountains' majesty and the amber waves of grain. And still, I was 1,000 nations before 1,000 nations invaded my shores. I was Blackfeet and Blood and Bannock, Inuit and Iroquois in Iowa, Wampanoag and Wichita and Winnebago. I never knew smallpox, whooping cough, cholera, and 1,000 other plagues until 1,000 other nations invaded my shores. I never knew chattel slavery, environmental atrocity, and wholesale genocide until 1,000 other nations invaded my shores. I never knew rampant alcoholism, widespread drug addiction, rampant teenage suicide, and relegation to internment camps until 1,000 other nations invaded my shores. I've seen my proud native tongues all but disappear amid the centuries-old assault of the King's English. My Rosetta Stone of wondrous native poetry decimated, and the storyteller's tapestry forever lost. I've seen my greatest heroes, my wisest chieftains, my most elegant matriarchs, and my fiercest warriors confined to postage stamp memories and historical footnotes. From Sitting Bull to Sacagawea, from Red Cloud to Pocahontas, from Jim Thorpe to Geronimo, confined to postage stamp memories and historical footnotes. I used to sow into the fields and fish the pristine waters and hunt in the verdant forests. I never considered a casino-based economy built for busloads of blue-haired elderly white women and inveterate gamblers. I am yet Kiowa and Lakota and Kickapoo, Mohican and Micmac and Mohawk, Ottawa and Osage and Oneida. I am yet 1,000 nations amid the 1,000 nations that now call this nation home. I am the child of the Trail of Tears and the reservation's somber reality, living quietly and crying out softly from the shadows of the heartland, crying out softly to the dream called America and the scheme called America. Thank you. Okay, so, little context. Pine Ridge today is the 8th largest reservation in the United States. It is the 2nd poorest county in the country. Life on Pine Ridge can be extremely difficult for many people, especially the young people. Pine Ridge is about 2/3 the size of Connecticut, with a population of approximately 35,000, with 35% under the age of 18. Some other statistics from federal, state, and tribal sources. Annual per capita income, $7,000. Unemployment, 85 to 90%. Alcoholism, 80 to 85%. 97% live below the federal poverty level. Life expectancy is 48 years for men, 52 years for women. Teen suicide rate is 2.5 times higher than the U.S. national average. School dropout rate is 70%. 35% of the households on Pine Ridge have no indoor plumbing. 39% have no electricity. Most people have limited access to quality health care, and there are minimal preventative health care programs. Now, I add this statistical information because I want folks to know that the Lakota children who came to visit Medford were not coming from a wealthy family in London, Paris, or Stockholm, or Hong Kong. Typically, when we think of student exchange, we see travel posters in exotic locales. Lakota, you stay is definitely not that. So I'm going to turn to you first, Joy, and ask you, how did you recruit and select the young people who came to Medford for the youth stay experience? And you can tell folks how many there were and the breakdown.
Well, in 2015, we had the idea of doing the program, and we started having community meetings on the reservation, which is almost the size of Connecticut. So we went to each district and had meetings there and invited people to come and hear about the program. So that was the way we got the word out. We had a number of Lakota people on the reservation who were with us at these community meetings, and they also promoted the program in their community. We have an application process that starts in December, and the children will fill out an application along with their family, and the application requires them to write a personal statement about why they're interested in doing this program. And then they also need to get recommendations from a teacher and a community member. So the application process is a little bit challenging.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah, but we wanted it to be that way because we wanted the kids to be serious about it and to put a little bit of effort in that. We provide a lot of assistance for them.
I imagine. So now, 10 to 15 years old is the age range.
Right.
Is the process the same in terms of all of those aspects for the 10-year-olds as it is for the 15-year-olds?
We do have advisors on the reservation that help with the application process, and then we also do from a distance.
Very good. Very good. Very good. So Bruce, as a partner in crime on this effort, how did you feel about the idea of participating and founding a movement like this?
Well, we had been going out to the reservation for 4 or 5 years before that and doing things like building wheelchair ramps and insulating trailers and building bunk beds and outhouses because so many people don't have bathrooms. And one year we had a particularly bad rash of suicides on the reservation one winter. Kids 10, 11, 12 years old.
I'm so sorry.
Suiciding. So Joy and I were talking on the hill one day where we were camped and wondered what else might we be able to do to improve, to bring hope to the kids. So the idea got tossed around, what about if we could show them for a week, for a period of time, some of the things that are available off the reservation, maybe increase their interest in staying in school, their interest in staying alive, and making something of their lives so they can go back and help the other people on the reservation.
What a phenomenal notion. Absolutely.
Born of real sad reality on the reservation.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to ask our other guests, Elizabeth and Rob, this question. I'll probably ask everybody. When you got involved with the You Stay initiative, and I know that you two have been at it for 2 years now, not just one, what did you anticipate in an extended home visit with a young person from Pine Ridge?
Well, it was very clear from the beginning that this is a cultural exchange, so we anticipated learning about the Lakota culture and what was going on there. We've never been to the reservation, so we expected and hoped to hear from the kids, which we did. Good stories about their traditions. The first year, both of our girls were dancers, traditional dancers. They brought their clothes and were very proud to show us what they knew and could do at the reservation as part of their culture. They feel that it's not appreciated here, that we don't know that. So they felt like ambassadors to Boston. So we really anticipated that and enjoyed that. And we anticipated trying, and sometimes awkwardly, to build a relationship with them, because part of the concept is that it will be an ongoing relationship, that it's not 1 week and you don't see them again, but trying to stay in communication so we'd be in touch with them. And we found that a bit hard to do over time, because the little girls we had taught us Snapchat. We're not of that generation. And so we had a hard time doing that, but we're now trying to write letters and do more texting. So it was a relationship building, and we didn't know exactly what to expect, but Joy and Bruce both did a really good job of explaining what their hopes were and what to anticipate. And they did a great job. They had the kids write us letters. We wrote them letters before they got here, so we both had a little bit of idea. Then once we were cleared, making sure that we were okay with some security checks, then we could call the parents, talk to the kids in person, so that before they got here, they had a sense and we had a sense of how that was going to work out.
Okay, so it's a pretty significant vetting process too. Okay, very good, very good. Rob, could I get you to answer the same question?
Well, I'm not sure I can add very much. I don't know whether we've been lucky, but the 2 girls we had last year were really quite incredible for young people. And then we had 2 boys this year, one of whom was only 10, but really is like he's about 21. He's incredibly grown up. He's got a very broad general knowledge, enormous interest in the world around him. So these kids have been a real surprise. I was sort of expecting, maybe somewhat dysfunctional kids, but certainly the 4 we've had have been really impressive. And we're hoping we can put a lot of work into encouraging them to at least text message. Snapchat is just too weird for us. But that's, to me, the value of the program is establishing a friendship and continuing it while they grow up through their teens.
Very good, very good, very good. So I want to come back to you, Joy, because I want to ask you, and I'll ask you as well, Bruce. You visited the reservation for several years before you started the program. How did you, what did you anticipate would be different in having young people come here versus, seeing them in their native element, so to speak?
Well, when we first envisioned this idea, we really weren't sure if something like this would work. And so one of the first things we did is we went and spoke with some of the elders on the reservation and proposed the idea to them. And we got very positive feedback from them. A lot of the youth on the reservation don't have very many opportunities to leave the reservation, maybe to go to Rapid City, which is probably about the size of Medford. But, our idea was to enable them to have an opportunity to see something different in life and to see what their options were. There was a concern because Pine Ridge is very different than here and a very different lifestyle than it is here. And so we weren't really sure how that was going to go. Whether the kids were going to be really shocked at what they see here. But it really has not turned out to be that way. They've been very interested and curious about the world and asking a lot of questions and really excited about the things that they learn, especially about the ocean. Yeah. Yeah, they haven't seen a lot of them have not seen the ocean, so that's been a big interest of theirs. And we've taken them to the aquarium and gone out on the ocean, gone to the beach, those kinds of things. So it just opens up a world of opportunities and options for them to think about their future and to give them hope. And that was really the purpose.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a great age, 10 to 15.
It
I mean,
is.
that youthful curiosity is probably at its peak during that age frame. So Bruce, did you have any expectations of what you would see when you got the kids in Medford and eastern Massachusetts?
Well, if I did, they were quickly kind of washed away. I had a thought though, Terry, I would just add that support that we got on the reservation from elders or even 30-year-olds that we talked to, if they had a chance themselves to get off the reservation, and a number of them had, they totally supported the program. They said, this is absolutely crucial that you do this. I'm alive today, one woman said to us, because I had a chance to go to school off the reservation. And now, this particular woman ended up getting her master's degree here in Boston. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
That was a great accomplishment.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you, Joy and Rob, how did it change? First of all, do you have children of your own living with you in your household?
Neither of us have children, so this was a real adventure in that way as well.
All right, so this still is a pertinent question. How did it change the usual course of life in your household to have new and unfamiliar youngsters staying with you?
It was a real challenge. And one thing was that both of us consider ourselves to be gourmet cooks. We love to cook. These kids didn't like our cooking. We'd spend days making sandwiches, consulting on sandwiches for lunch, and then come home uneaten. So it was pretty consistent that way. The boys were better than the girls, but the girls really liked what they were used to at home. And if we didn't have it, they didn't want to get it. So that was different. Other things that were different. I think the silliness They really enjoyed playing. I mean, one thing we did that we really thought was good is having two at the same time so that they could be partners for each other, so they didn't feel alone with these strange adults, and that really helped. So we had a lot of giggling that went on, and a lot of teasing, and this time we had a lot of shoulder tapping to pretend who was that and tickle around.
Fantastic. Rob?
The first thing I should say is both Elizabeth and I come from big families ourselves, and so having been through that, I think we both decided we didn't have the energy to have kids of our own. So it's been a great opportunity to confirm that we probably wouldn't have the energy. At the end of a week, we're totally exhausted. Getting up early in the morning, getting them organised, getting them on their way, and of course, Joy and Bruce are at it every day. We get some days off where we're not needed as chaperones, but Joy and Bruce are at it every day. And so how they make it through the week, I do not know. But we, at the last Tuesday night, was it Tuesday night or Wednesday night, we just collapsed when we got home. So it's very exhausting, but it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Excellent. So happy to hear that. So I want to ask you, Joyce, can you give the audience an overall sense of what took place during the week?
Sure. We spent, a number of months sort of planning out the week, and part of their application process is indicating what they're interested in exploring. So there's a lot of options on their application that they can check off, and then we base the program on what they're most interested in doing. So as I said before, the ocean was big. So one of the first things we do is we go to the aquarium downtown, and we spend a few hours there, and they get to see all the fish. And in the aquarium they have a lot of exhibits where you can actually touch.
Very interactive.
Yes, so they really enjoyed that a lot. We did a tour of Harvard because one of the things we're interested in doing is helping the kids to stay in school because the dropout rate is so high.
Yes.
So we do a tour of Harvard, and last year they were able to meet the chairperson of the Native American program at Harvard, who was very encouraging to them and offered to really help them if they get, when they start looking at colleges, he offered to help them. So that was very, the kids were really impressed with that. We have gone to the Museum of Fine Arts. We've gone to the Peabody Essex Museum. A big popular thing last year was going on a whale watch out to the ocean.
Again,
And we were, and we were fortunate enough on that day that there were a lot of breaching whales.
Oh my goodness.
So the kids got to see that, which
That's
was,
something I haven't
yeah.
seen. Okay, very good.
right, so that was really good. And we also did a photography workshop. We gave each of the kids a camera to use for the week. And Susan Darcy Fuller, who lives in West Medford, she gave them lessons on how to use the camera. And so the kids took pictures all week, and we have an exhibit hanging now at Sanctuary of some of the kids' photographs, and it'll be up for the next month.
Very good.
458 High Street.
458 High Street. Okay, so it's right in West Medford Square. Probably everybody in West Medford knows where the church is. And what are the gallery hours? What time is it open?
It's open 11 to 6,
Okay.
Monday through Friday, and then Saturday I think it's 11 to 5.
Okay.
And it's through the month of August.
All right, so if you have an opportunity to go and visit that photography exhibit, I think it would be well worth your time to do it because, again, young people take pictures of things that we would never think of taking pictures of, and it can be very illuminating to see things from their perspective. So I would highly recommend a trip to the gallery at UCC. They've got, Reverend Old Polly's got a lot of interesting things going on at the church in terms of culture and things of that nature. So that's fantastic. Okay, so how did your expectations match up with the reality of the week you spent as hosting the program? So when you think back to kind of the full range of things that could possibly happen, how did the things that did happen kind of match up?
Well, I nearly everything, as far as I can see, really worked. These kids are very open to being amazed. So we spent a day on Spectacle Island, and they just played in the water the whole day. It was freezing. I lasted about 3 minutes. But they went in, Quinton, one of the boys that stayed with us, I think he was in all day. And then last year, the 2 girls that were with us were very nervous about the whale watch thing, and they're very polite. It's very hard to get them to tell you what's on their minds. And we kept getting at them and saying, you know, what's the problem? And they wouldn't say. And we got on the boat and they wouldn't get outside. They wanted to stay inside. And one of the girls, I said, you know, this is going to be really great. You'll love it. Well, one of the girls was worried that sharks would jump in the boat. And we said, no, they can't. Firstly, they don't want to do that.
That was
And
just
secondly,
a movie.
it was just a movie. And then Eliot, the other girl, she came over to me with her phone, and she had a piece of artwork on it, and it was a cross-section of the sea, and way up the top was the surface of the water with this tiny little fishing boat, and underneath were all these gigantic sea monsters. And she said, this is how we see the ocean. So the boat leaves the dock, and we're going out Gloucester Harbour. We convinced them to go and poke their nose out of the cabin, and we never saw them again for 6 hours. They went up, they spent the entire trip in the bow of the boat with the wind, and you know, totally transformed their views about the ocean. So that was a real experience.
That is a fantastic story. What it says about frame of reference and how just the smallest of things can totally change your perspective on the world is really, really phenomenal. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I was going to ask you the same question. I'll repeat it if I will.
Yeah, so maybe last year, one of the real mind openers was we spent a day down at the Wampanoag. It's not really a reservation, but their land in Mashpee, and it was just a fantastic day of all kinds of hospitality. They took us to their beaches. They had a museum. They showed us their work for a dam, rivers, and then did wonderful drumming, and everybody danced. It was just like a huge celebration, and it was really lovely for the kids to have kind of a cultural exchange between tribes, but also to be with kids who were very much in a similar situation, but in a very different place, in a very different life.
One of the things maybe that can happen in the future iteration of the program is there are a number of families living in West Medford that have Native American connections, in Wampanoag in particular, Nipmuc and Wampanoag, Narragansett, because these were, you know, kind of the New England tribes, so, and, you know, it was, you know, marriages and such. So maybe it would be, you know, it'd be interesting to see if we could kind of make some connections between, you know, some of, if not, you know, as host families, maybe as our cultural references.
But why not as host families?
I did say
Yeah.
not, but yeah, maybe
So
that would
if
be.
anyone's listening.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this question of, you know, expectations versus reality, it certainly doesn't exclude you know, again, after several years of visiting the reservations and having a sense of, you know, who these young people were and, you know, how they lived their lives, what surprised you about bringing them here and having them interact with families off the reservation?
Well, you know, I mean, they're kids, just like any other kids, you know. I mean, I think, you know, maybe we thought, oh, you know, they're Native kids, they're from a reservation, and they definitely are, but they're also just kids that are interested in the world, interested in getting to know other people, you know, and I think the thing that really struck us was that a lot of the kids on the reservation maybe don't have a strong sense of their future or what they could possibly do. So I think one of the things that is really amazing to us is sort of seeing that light come on during the week as they get to experience all these new things that you can sort of see this light starting to come through at the end, because they start asking questions.
Okay.
You know, do you think I could do that? Do you think I could go to Harvard?
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
so those kind of things start coming up, and it's just so wonderful to see their world sort of opening up in front of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you see different lights coming on at different times for
Absolutely.
different kids?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What kinds of things prove to be triggers? You know, can you give a sense?
Well, I think some kids, you know, like all kids, are more outgoing or more open than others, and I think, you know, they all came with a little bit of trepidation, yes,
Sure.
in terms of who they're going to be staying with, what it's going to be like, what am I going to eat.
Okay.
That's a big one.
That's a big one, yeah. So, you know, I think some kids sort of jump right in. That's just their personality, and some kids sort of hold back a little bit more, and it takes them a little bit longer to warm up to the whole situation and the experience. But it's interesting to us because by the end of the week, they're such different kids than they were in the beginning in many ways.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Okay, so we all go into, you know, different experiences with, you know, beliefs and, you know, ways we do things and ways we see things. And I'll ask everybody this question. I think it's a meaningful one. How do you think you've been impacted by what you've experienced? You, Bruce and Joy, over the course of the 2 years that you've shepherded young people in the program, and Elizabeth and Rod, and Bruce and Joy. So again, you can just go right down the line. How do you think your beliefs, your perspective on the world has been changed and been affected by what you've seen here?
Well, I mean, I've always been interested in Native American history and culture, and I mean, I feel like I'm constantly learning from this whole experience, from going out to the reservation every year, getting to know people out there, learning more about their culture, learning more about their history, and the way life is out there. And there's definitely some differences.
Sure.
And, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm walking on a minefield and, you know, I'm going to step on something at any time.
Okay.
But it's always, I like to learn, I guess. And I feel like I've gotten so much out of this experience myself. It's just opened me up a lot to some of the history and some of the historical trauma that most Native Americans have experienced in this country, and a lot of people, especially on the East Coast, aren't aware of that.
Okay.
So, you know, there's a lot to learn in that regard, and sort of the ongoing effect of that.
So maybe the poem resonates with you.
Absolutely. I thought that was an excellent poem, actually, very powerful. And, you know, I feel like it's sort of our obligation, if you will, to do what we can to try and address some of the things that have happened for Native people. And we're all in this together, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're all in this together. We're all human beings on this earth, and we're trying to do the best we can. And so if we have an opportunity to engage and do something, we benefit as well as they do. We all do.
I agree. Bruce, how about you?
Well, there was a moment, a brief moment 2 or 3 years ago when we were tossing this idea around, where I actually wondered whether this was a good idea or not. You know, taking some kids from extremely poor circumstances, bringing them to Boston, one of the more expensive places to live in the country.
Absolutely.
Where they'd see things that they don't see at home and unlikely to see. Whether that was what it would be like for them to return then to the reservation, and would it be a good thing or not? I just didn't know the answer to that question. And then, of course, it helped to talk to some Native folks who had done exactly that.
Okay.
And I just chosen to be back on the reservation, but they know what that brought to them, that view of the outside world. So it was a very, I wasn't sure what to expect, but having had 2 loads of kids that we've brought out over the course of the year, to have them go back and then hear things like one of the young women's got back and she decided to go to a boarding school off the reservation because she wanted to further her education, and then hearing about a couple of girls that are interested in maybe coming back to Boston to go to school.
Okay.
You know, that with such a high dropout rate on the reservation, I was saying to someone earlier today, if we have 21 kids down that have been to Medford, and if none of them drop out of high school, wouldn't that be a powerful statement?
Absolutely.
And if none of them suicided, would,
Hallelujah.
yeah. So that would be no small achievement. So I'm now convinced that it's a very positive.
Very
thing
good
to do.
idea. Absolutely.
And not to mention all the how entertaining these kids can be. Very much fun.
Very good. Very good. Please, Elizabeth.
So I think one thing that I certainly appreciate about them is the importance of friendship and also family for the families out there. And I feel very good that the families have trusted us as much as they have, because it was very clear, actually it was even clearer at the day we spent with the Wampanoags, that family is like central. And
Yes.
so here are these kids who are in this very isolated situation where if they leave their family, they might have more of a chance for success, but family is important. So I think it's really very powerful to think about. So how can we help them? And I think part of it is keeping close contact with them and their families, so that it's like they've got family here and family there, that people support them in other places, because they really do feel very committed to their families, and we want to make sure we support that as well as supporting them.
Well, they've clearly extended their family now,
Yeah, that's
so
how it's feeling.
you know,
That's how it's
that
feeling.
trust and that relationship building has been, you know, a different experience for them. Wonderful.
That's the feedback that we've gotten, you know, after the program. We always do a meeting about a month after with the youth and the families. And a lot of the feedback that we've gotten is that the kids and the families on the reservation feel like they have a support system in Boston. And, you know, if their kids wanted to look at colleges or had some interests, that they feel like they can reach out to us for that.
So am I correct in assuming that all of the host families, and yourselves included, as advisors to the program, are out of the UCC faith community?
Actually, no.
Okay.
We are, you know, we're members of Sanctuary UCC, but none of the other host families are.
Okay. Now, is that intentional or deliberate?
No, it's not.
It's just the way it falls
It's just the
out?
way it happened.
Okay, so
We sort of put the word out that we were looking for host families, and we were really fortunate to get a great group last year, and we had most of the families, the host families from last year, returning. This year, we have some new ones in Arlington, so we're hoping to sort of continue to expand that.
Okay, so as Bruce said, the recruitment pool is open?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll put the word out and see
Yes.
what we can come up with. I think it'd be fantastic. Okay, what was, and I want to ask this question of you in particular, Joy, what was the most challenging aspect of helping to manage the logistics, the families, and the events during this week?
Oh, do you have about 3 hours?
Well, I got a little bit of time.
Well, I mean, there's a fair number of challenges even with the application process.
Sure.
A lot of families don't have computers, don't have internet access. Cell phones sort of come and go. It's difficult to connect with people on the
Okay.
reservation. So that's a challenge in of itself.
Sure.
In terms of the logistics, even though the kids are here for 8 days, it really takes most of the year to sort of
I
organize
imagine
the
so.
whole thing.
Sure.
We do all the fundraising ourselves, so we do a lot of events throughout the year to raise the funds for the airfares and for the program expenses. We're all volunteers in this, so everything that we raise goes directly to the program and to getting the kids here and organizing all the events and the activities that we do for
Okay.
them. So there's a lot of logistics in terms of the fundraising aspect of it. But I do reach out a lot to the community in terms of planning the activities, you know, the photography workshop.
Okay.
Arts Alive Medford Foundation has been very generous with us and have given us a grant last year for the cameras.
Okay.
And this year we did a teepee event at Plaisted Park on Sunday the 29th, and Arts Alive Medford helped support that event as well, which gave the kids an opportunity to really share and highlight their culture through
Absolutely.
raising a teepee and painting a teepee.
Well, we've got a lovely park right outside of our door here, Douglas Park. And
Oh.
the TP raising
Oh my
at Douglas Park, I think would be a lovely idea.
I do
So-
too, yeah.
And the community center, I think I can offer up, Brian, I can offer up, Bill would be more than happy to kind of facilitate.
Actually, the West
Something like
Medford
that.
Community Center was
Very helpful.
very supportive of the Youth Day program this year and helped a lot with the TP Day. So,
Fantastic.
and also the basketball games that they had out here. We had a couple of our girls come down
All right.
one night and play. So, yeah, so the community's been very helpful, but there is a lot of logistical. I mean, when you think about moving 11 kids around, it's sort of like herding cats, you know, you're always trying to sort of get them going in the same direction. But I have to say a lot of the organizations in Medford and in Boston have been very generous in terms of giving us, you know, complimentary passes or discounted passes. The Red Sox even gave us discounted tickets for a game one night this year, which was a great experience for the kids to be able to go.
I'm still looking for
see.
discounts.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you very much. That definitely is a good summation of that piece. So I'll ask everybody, and we can kind of close with this. Favorite part of the experience or most significant aha moment? So, what was your favorite part? Rob, your favorite part?
I think last year going on the whale watch with the kids, because this was like going to Mars for a lot of these kids, because they'd never seen the ocean, plus there were these whales leaping out of the water, and the captain on that day said it was one of the best days he'd ever seen. So it was like God who delivered this for them. So that was an amazing day, and I think the aha moment is towards the end of the week, the kids are starting to get you to know you enough so that they actually start telling you stuff about themselves. But to begin with, they're very reticent and generally very quiet and very polite. But then later in the week, both times we found that they started opening up a little bit. I think they had a lot more confidence in us.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I think my favorite was going to Spectacle Island and seeing the kids just be so excited about the ocean. I mean, they just loved being there, and the waves were like magic to them. So I think seeing that, and even the more timid ones got in eventually and really enjoyed themselves. And I think maybe my aha is the depth of friendships that comes between the kids. They come as strangers, but by the end of the week, they've got connections all around the reservation with other kids, some of whom they really like, and I think that's something I didn't expect to be so powerful, but when you think of that big of a space, it makes sense. They don't see each other that often.
Absolutely, when we think of it as being, you know, the size that it is, I mean, one might assume automatically that the kids are a pod, you know, that they all come from the same community, or, but yeah, that's wonderful. Please.
What was the first part?
Favorite experience,
Favorite
aha
experience.
moment.
I had a favorite experience this year at the Red Sox game. The kids, of course, know about the Red Sox, and they really know about the Celtics. They're big basketball fans.
Yes.
But they, one kid had the gall to wear a Yankees hat. And we told him this is a bad idea. So he did buy a hat that was more appropriate, and he wore it in. But also they made signs when they went to the game. So, you know, you look at what the Jumbotron between innings, and the camera's flashing around seeing people waving and dancing and all this. So the kids start raising their signs and dancing and trying to get the attention of the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
Now, we were far enough away from the camera that they never got on, but they never stopped trying to get on. You know, they were dancing. That was a favorite moment for me.
That's wonderful.
And the second part was probably more a serious question.
Kind of the aha.
Yeah, the aha moment. So we do at the end of the week have a kind of a potluck at our house, and we toward the end of the night the kids go swimming in our little swimming pool, and they have fun. They're waterlogged and they get out. They've had plenty to eat, and we get serious for a moment. We form a circle around the pool and talk about what we have appreciated about the week and the experience. And just hearing some of the kids express their appreciation for, they didn't know what they were in for.
I can imagine it's
Yeah.
a very emotional
It's
time
very
for
moving,
everybody.
just
Yeah.
moving to see these kids who, keep their head down when you first see them, they don't have much to say. And there's, some of them just come out with very surprising comments, very grown-up statements, and express their gratitude in a very heartfelt way.
That's wonderful.
And so that was
Wow, that'll touch on your heartstrings, surely. Surely, and finally?
You know, one of my favorite moments, it was actually from last year when we went to Plum Island, and it was the first time the kids saw the ocean. And there's sort of a dune, so you have to sort of go up, and then you get to the top of that, and then the oceans. And when they got to the top of that dune, they just all started screaming. And they ran down, and on Plum Island, the waves are pretty big.
Yeah.
And those kids just ran right up to that, and it was just so exciting seeing them experience the ocean for the first time and the waves and sort of being afraid, to go in.
And this was a gray, blustery
Right,
day.
right. We were all bundled up in our coats, but they were in their bathing suits, and they were afraid to go in, but they really wanted to.
Yeah.
So just sort of witnessing that and being able to experience with that was just a joyous moment, really. And I think one of the aha moments for me, both last year and this year, was just seeing the kids when they first get off the plane and come to the airport, and they're all sort of quiet and, shy, and they have their heads down, and then seeing them the last night at the potluck and how much more open they are and willing to share their feelings and their, experiences and their gratitude for being able to come to Boston, and, just everyone expressing a lot of joy, I guess, and thanks and happiness about the whole week. So that makes it very special and meaningful for us.
How wonderful, how wonderful. It makes me think that if we could have a program where we took adults and did the same thing with them, and I'm not even talking about Pine Ridge Reservation, I'm talking about North Medford and South Medford, East Medford and West Medford. Maybe we could, work some of these things out, some of the differences that we have.
Well, we actually do that. I mean, Bruce and I do go out to Pine Ridge every summer, and we're always welcoming any new adults or teens that want to go out with us. So we do lead trips out there every summer for a week, and if anybody wants to join us,
Wow.
you're welcome.
Wow, that's a great invitation. Very well. That is, again, a great invitation. That's all the time we have for what has been a fascinating and very enjoyable conversation. I want to thank you, Joy, and Bruce, and Elizabeth, and Rob, for joining us tonight. I think it's been very informative for our audience. Maybe whet some folks' appetite for this little bit of business for next year. And I also just want to say on behalf of the West Medford Community Center, we think you're doing a great thing. And we think okay, so a quick pause for the cause. Yvette Wilkes, who is one of our divas, who helps us to get a lot of what we are able to do done here, is on the board of the Women in Film and Video in New England, and they are offering memberships for young women that want to be involved in film and video. So if you know of any young ladies, and even older ladies, that want to be involved in film and video here in Massachusetts and other New England states, please get in touch with Yvette. She can give you more information. She can tell you about the outreach that she's doing to bring more folks into this area. And then the last thing, and this is because I can, The Brown Skin Poet has 3 books, and I'm working on my 4th now, and I'll have it done very soon. But if you're interested in any of the books, or if you're interested in my campaign to get the 4th book published, please let me know. I'll give you all the information. We'll go on from there. Once again, thanking the law offices of Allen Pampinen, Tufts Neighborhood Services Fund, the Medford Arts Council, and just a lot of folks who help us to get this thing done every week. We're going to take a few minutes to get ready for our musical guest. You know them, you love them, you'll enjoy them, and we thank you for being an attentive and beautiful live audience as usual. Thanks very much.
Baby, know you all had a good time the first time we were here. We are going to do things that you've never seen before, I hope. But let me introduce the band. On my left here, guitar player, Bob Ledger. He's originally from Lynn, Mass. He's retired now, but he was a hard-working man in the court system.
Which side?
He was the one that carried the gun, make sure you don't mess around.
Which side?
What's that? Oh, he on the good side.
A lot of guys, of course, it's a
Well, he wouldn't be here if he wasn't on the good side. And my drummer, this is Sir Cecil. Let me tell you a little bit about Sir Cecil. He is Jamaican, and he was born and raised in London. So when you hear him sing, you'll like the way he sings because he's got a combination of a British and a Jamaican accent, which is really nice. And my bass player,
I was going to say something, but I won't interfere. First of all, I'm not from Jamaica, never been there.
So he told me a lie 2 years ago. And Lee Lundy, he's from Cambridge, hanging out there in Waltham and places like that. You probably seen the other musicians like Richard Lawrence back there. He played with him many times, and other people. And of course, my name is Eliot Johnson. Forgive me. God bless you. So we're gonna. All right, what do you want to do, Bob? We're gonna continue on.
All right.
Help me, TNG.
Well, we all need a little help from time to time. It's a song called Help Me.
A 1, 2, a 1, 2.
B flat.
B flat?
B flat.
B.
Huh?
What is it?
Rock me, baby, rock me all night long. I want you to rock me, baby, step up top. Let's do a shuffle up.
Wait, you string it up?
Everything got to do with stuff. Same key. Ready? When you see me, Y'all know this song. Sing along with us. I know I can have it. Come on now. Oh, right on. Don't start that again. Get you better slowly, Mustang down.
be mine. Back down, just back and forth.
Just do what you do. So what's the reason?
I shall be released. One. Let's play this. G, A minor, B minor. That's way A. 1,
'Cause every man needs protection. They say that every man
time you got?
One love.
Huh?
One love.
One more?
One love.
One
All these
love.
requests.
Let's
Stay together, my money.
Bob Marley?
Yeah, you just play the my money.
Look, Bob right there.
Bum, ba-da-da, bum. Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
Bum, bum, ba-da-da, bum.
You don't know that. You don't know more than those five? You don't want the five? the changes? You have to sing. Oh, I have to sing it. How do you know when the Key is C.
Okay, this goes out to you. It's a request. We don't know, but we aim to please. By Bob Marley and the Wailers. Found no cry.
Everything's gonna, you know the word. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Oh, everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. I say no woman, no woman, no cry. No tears. No.
Hey, WMCC, we enjoyed ourselves, and looks like y'all enjoyed yourself. Bye now, take care.
Oh, really? Is that what she said? Oh, that demonstrates some insight.
Demonstrates low self-esteem.
Yeah. But also some insight that she didn't think that, you know.
Maybe it's insight, maybe it's just like, you don't like me, do you?
Do you want to do a sound check, Bill?
I tagged her name in it. I tagged her name.
The band is
I
on
tagged
clock
her name.
and
She was
So
an
you should see it on your
opinion.
Facebook.
Tags are
Yes.
right on my feet.
Yeah, but something is weird.
those mics should be locked.
But then
Testing one,
It did show that.
change more dramatically than
Huh?
Vanessa.
Check, check, mic check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing 1, 2, 3.
Mic check, testing 1, 2, 3.
Test, check, check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Yep, that's good. That's good.
Mic check, testing.
There were a lot of things.
Yeah.
Mic check.
A little bit. I don't know. It's this leg right here.
Where's the matchbook when you need one?
I'll get something.
No one smokes anymore, you don't have matchbooks.
Del Fisher already tagged you. Oh, yeah.
Who's driving? And I said, you know, because it's not on the phone.